Time for overtime.
I think I'm ready for this.
Heck yeah.
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
In the left center field, that's hit well. That'll split the gap.
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
What a Tuesday indeed, on the heels of a Monday night that'll be remembered for a long time for Minnesota's pro sports fans. You should be excited. You should be elated and fired up today if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. I was wrong. Nuggets fans were wrong. And the majority of the people that talk about sports for a living wrong yesterday. Going into game 2, I thought the Nuggets would punch back. I thought the most likely outcome was a close Nuggets win by 10 points or less. The second most likely, I thought the Nuggets might punch back really hard and say, hey, we're the defending champs. Here's another punch. Here's one right back in your face, Minnesota. But the least likely outcome heading into last night, and this is not me dogging on the dogs, but was Minnesota just flat out embarrassing Denver once again to the tune of a lopsided first quarter, an extremely lopsided halftime score, and a embarrassing final score to the tune of a 106-80 dominant defensive win for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns, 27 points and 12 boards. Anthony Edwards, 27 points and 7 assists. The Nuggets get embarrassed. They're inefficient. They can't handle the defense. Jamal Murray's going to get suspended. It's all coming unraveled for the Denver Nuggets. And by the way, everyone is on the Ant-Man train now as the new face of the NBA. It seems just overnight, people nationally are saying, hey, this kid can play. He's really good. He's like a young MJ. Look out. Here come the Timberwolves. Here are the Timberwolves. We'll check in on the latest odds in Minnesota because things are pretty crazy. I told you yesterday on the show, if Minnesota were to beat Denver, this entire thing would come unglued across the NBA as far as perception goes, and we're seeing it already across the National Basketball Association as the Minnesota Timberwolves go up 2-0 in a series in which game 1 and 2 were on the road in Denver against a far superior, in quotations, Denver Nuggets team. It certainly is not over yet, but man, oh man, what a night for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, everyone across the board, including a heating pad tossed onto the floor by Jamal Murray. It wasn't his only attempted object to throw on the floor. Also threw a towel in there. Murray, in my opinion, can, will, and should be suspended for throwing those objects to the floor, including a heating pad that narrowly missed a step by Karl Anthony Towns. And again, the intent is the question. What the heck was going on? Clearly he's frustrated, but you throw something on the floor. Luckily we avoided an injury, but if you think about the worst case scenario there, whether or not it's a Nuggets player, Timberwolves player, or otherwise, you don't want fans throwing things on the floor. You certainly don't want players or anyone throwing things on the floor, and Jamal Murray chucks a heating pad on the floor and very closely caused an injury to Karl Anthony Towns or anyone else in that area of the paint. Very ugly stuff. I think Murray will get suspended. More on that later on in the program. On today's show, about 20 minutes from now, we'll be breaking down University of Sioux Falls and their athletic department, the latest and greatest from their athletic department, and so much more ahead. We'll talk football and more with new AD Jon Hart, just still pretty darn new to the job. We talked to him immediately after getting announced as the new athletic director right here in Sioux Falls. We'll check in on how things are going, what's ahead for the spring and the summer, as well as the fall, as football season all of a sudden coming up, not too far away. Athletic Director Jon Hart will join us in about 20 minutes on today's show. About 30 minutes from now, the latest from the NBA. The Wolves shocked both myself and the world. We'll check in on the latest odds for Game 3, the latest odds for the series, and where the Timberwolves rank now as of today in terms of NBA Finals odds. I don't want to put the jinx on them, but certainly got to be respected, got to be in the top 2, top 3, I would think. I haven't checked him yet. Can't wait to see that and do that live on the air with you. At the end of hour number 1, the latest from the National Football League. Couple interesting stories, including the return of one of the game's best quarterbacks from an injury last year. We'll tell you who that is, and also give you another opportunity to not drop the ball for Mother's Day. Don't look like a horse's patootie. I'll keep you in the loop, and an opportunity to win big. A free 6-pack of cupcakes to Oh My Cupcakes to bring a smile to your significant other's face for Mother's Day, maybe your mom's face for Mother's Day. Do not drop the ball. I got the hookup for you at the end of hour number 1. Hour number 2, headlines and highlights. We'll repick the NBA playoffs as of today, and then we'll talk with Augustana alum and LA Rams offensive lineman Blake Larson around 12:30. He's earned an undrafted free agency contract and an opportunity to make the roster out with the LA Rams and Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and a very established team out there. We're talking with Blake Larson around 12:30, Brandon Valley High School graduate and Augustana standout, and we'll wrap up today's show with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Certainly it was a lot of good for the Boston Bruins last night. They opened up a series on the road down in Florida, and they poured on the Panthers.
2-on-1, Brazo right circle, backhand, he scores! Justin Brazo, his first career Stanley Cup playoff goal, a beautiful finish, backhand top shelf, Bruins 4, Panthers 1.
5-1 would be the final. Audio there, 98.5 the Sports Hub. 5-1, Boston wins game 1, take a 1-0 series lead. Tonight in the NHL, it's game 2 between the Rangers and the Hurricanes from New York. That puck drops at 6 o'clock on ESPN. And game 1, Avalanche down in Dallas to battle the Stars, 8:30 on ESPN. Now to the NBA, very intriguing and interesting night. Couple of interesting calls down the stretch for Indiana and the Knicks. I still thought New York was the better team last night. They win by 4, 121-117. Jalen Brunson had 43, but it was an assist late that made the difference.
One-on-one with Nembhard, backing his way in at the top of the key. Shot clock down to 6. DiVincenzo, deep 3, left side. That's good! And the Knicks are on top by 3 with 39 seconds to go.
New York would win it by 4, 121-117. Jalen Brunson, one of the many stars of the postseason. In my opinion, one of the top 3 stars of the postseason thus far. He says his team, plain and simply, found a way.
I don't know. We just find a way, no matter what it is. We just give each other confidence to make sure we can get the job done. So it's nothing in particular. It's just a group of guys that we have. We all just give each other confidence and move forward together.
1-0 series lead now for the Knicks. Game 2 back at MSG in just a couple days. Minnesota and Denver. It was lopsided at the half to the tune of I had to refresh my app a couple times to be like, man, oh man, look at that score. Tuned in for the remainder, and my goodness, Minnesota 106-80 the final in Denver. Karl Anthony Towns 27 points and 12 boards. Anthony Edwards 27 points and 7 assists in a dominant win, and one that'll be remembered for a while in the Twin Cities.
And up the center of the floor. Goes on KCP. Spins the baseline up with the right hand. Counted the foul. Ant has been special once again. 26 points. And KCP has been helpless defending Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards finishes with 27. Here's last night's final call, courtesy of K-Fan.
The Timberwolves have come into Denver and stunned the defending champs, winning twice on their home floor. The horn sounds here at Ball Arena, and the Wolves lead the Nuggets 2-0.
2-0. The series is far from over. You're still dealing with a very experienced, savvy, and veteran crew in Denver, and one with one of the best players on the planet in Nikola Jokic. Anthony Edwards says, hey, we're ready to take the punches that come our way next time out.
They're not going to come out and play like that again in Game 3. We got to be ready to take their punch. And I always tell the team, like when we huddle up and Finchie say, we got to be ready to take their punch, I say, we're going to punch too. Shit, I mean, they're not the only one punching in the fight. So, I mean, yeah, just like that. They're not the only one that's going to come out punching. I don't give a damn if we go up 3-0 for the Game 4, we're going to come out punching too.
Apologize for the profanity in that clip, but the Timberwolves again take the 2-0 series lead. As for the Denver Nuggets, head coach Michael Malone says, hey, stick with us. We're not done.
I felt that as a unit tonight. It wasn't great. We can definitely be better. And so I just ask our fans to stay with us. I know tonight was not a pretty sight, and I know there were some boos out there, and I understand that because we didn't play anywhere close to the level that we've come to expect from this team. But stay with us, believe in us. We've done a lot of good things.
Denver Nuggets are a team that definitely deserves your trust, but after last night, it feels like things coming unraveled. We'll dive into the Jamal Murray debate here in just a moment, but Brian Windhorst, who covers the NBA for ESPN, says he is also not ready to bury Denver.
I'm not giving them 2 more wins just yet, but the way they played these 2 games was just incredibly impressive and definitely an arrival for them. And Denver doesn't bend to anybody, and they haven't just bent. They got pushed flat on their back. It's just been a complete man-on-man, just beat them. I don't like Denver's chances without now down 2 on their home court and with Murray hurting, but I'm not ready to go there just yet.
That's ESPN's Brian Windhorst. Now on to Jamal Murray, in terms of not only the injury, but also a potential suspension coming. Chucked a couple objects near the court, one of them on the floor during play, a heating pad that could have been much worse than it was. Jay Williams and Tim Legler talking about, should Murray be suspended moving forward?
I feel like he should be suspended for a game. That was an inch away from Karl Anthony Towns planting his right foot right on that thing. That could have hurt him. He could have been out of the game. I understand it's not precedent, but I think that was such an immature move by Jamal Murray, and that could have been a really hurtful, nasty thing to happen to Karl.
I'll be shocked if he's not.
I would be shocked if he's not as well, because there's a couple layers here. Not only does Murray, of course, have the objects that he threw. It's on camera. We know it came from his hand, and it went on the court, and it caused an injury concern. There was no injury caused, and that is great news for everybody involved. But the opportunity that was put out there to cause a significant injury to another team's player or your own team's player or anyone there on the floor, it doesn't matter who it is, really darn ugly situation. And Murray's lucky that it didn't result that way. But either way, the opportunity that he threw it out there, to me, warrants a suspension. And not only that, we saw Gobert earlier this year do the money sign after an exchange with a referee. Murray did that last night as well. I think a suspension is not likely. It is coming for sure for Jamal Murray, probably game 3, maybe longer than that. We will wait and see. All sorts of storylines coming out of that series. Minnesota 2-0, 106-80. Last night's lopsided final on the road out in Denver. Tonight in the NBA, Cavs at Celtics game 1 tips off 6 o'clock on TNT. Mavericks at Thunder game 1, 8:30 on TNT tonight. Major League Baseball finals from yesterday. Cubs lost at home to the Padres 6-3, and Cleveland finds a way to win against division rival Detroit at home. This one down to the wire and a narrow win for the Guardians.
Here's the pitch. A swing and a drive to deep right field. Away, back, and gone. Right down the line. Jose Ramirez makes it a 2-1 Cleveland lead.
Guardians continue to be feisty, still the top team in the AL Central. 2-1 the final, 23-12, their other overall record. Audio there, WTAM. Other finals, White Sox lost again at Tampa 8-2, and Kansas City and Milwaukee duke it out from down in KC, where the Royals come out on top.
Now first pitch to Michael Garcia, and he grounds it up the middle, base hit. Velasquez in to score. Frazier rounds third. He crosses standing. The Royals have taken the lead. It's 3-2 in the bottom of the 7th.
That would be the final score, 21-15, the new record for Kansas City. Audio there, KCSP. Otherwise, Minnesota back on the winning track. Griffin Jacks picks up his 3rd win of the season. Caleb Thielbar his 3rd save. Minnesota wins at home against Seattle 3-1. New record for the Twins, 20-14. And for reference, they had that 12-game winning streak. They were 7-13 to turn that around quickly to a 20-14 record. Remarkable for Minnesota. Hopefully they keep it going. Elsewhere, Mets and St. Louis. It was the Mets, the road team, with the win yesterday.
That's drilled. Deep right field. Headed out to the wall. Gone. Oh, Brandon Nimmo gives the Mets the lead. 111-mile-an-hour rocket.
St. Louis with that home loss, 15-20 on the season. WCBS, the audio there. Today and tonight in Major League Baseball. No games concerning area teams during the day. 5:10, it's a Tigers and Guardians start time from Cleveland. White Sox at Rays, Brewers at Royals, Padres at Cubs. Mets visit the Cardinals, and the Rockies are home to the Giants among the smattering of matchups across Major League Baseball. Mariners in town again for the Twins at Target Field. That is the game 2 of the series. 6 o'clock pregame, 6:40 the first pitch time. You can listen to Twins baseball right here on ESPN Sioux Falls. Not a whole lot of NFL news these days, but Adam Schefter with an interesting tidbit here on Michael Penix Jr. Obviously, it's an interesting head-scratching pick for the Atlanta Falcons, but one blessing in disguise. Kirk Cousins coming off an injury. Penix should see the field a ton in the preseason, according to Schefty.
I would think that we'd see a lot of Michael Penix in the preseason. That would be my guess. Not as much of Kirk Cousins at all. Just because he's coming off the Achilles, there's no reason to expose him early on. I'm sure they're going to want to get him a little work. I'm sure it would be more important to get Michael Penix more work, knowing that in a perfect world, he's not playing at all this season. They haven't decided that yet, but sure there'll be plenty of work for Penix and a lot less work for Cousins during the preseason.
That's ESPN's Adam Schefter. Certainly true there. Penix should be able to cut his teeth, get some experience at the NFL level early in the preseason. But again, best case scenario, the Falcons will trot out the guy they paid a ton of money to for 2 years, maybe 3, maybe 4, while Penix waits in the wings. That's your scorecard. Now into your Reliabank headlines of the day. For the first time in his career, J.D. Hennon has been named the NSIC Pitcher of the Week. That was announced by the conference office this morning. The third different pitcher from Augustana to earn the award this year. Sophomore from Alexandria, Minnesota, and Alexandria Area High School threw a complete game one-hitter to help the Vikings earn a victory over the last week over Northern State. Struck out 8 in his second complete game of the season. Congratulations to J.D. Hennon for the first time in his career, NSIC Pitcher of the Week. Augustana head women's basketball coach Nate Vogel has been busy in the first couple of weeks on the job. He's announced 3 additions to the roster. Olivia Hayenga, Izzy Klumper, and Brindley McCrae will join the Vikings for the upcoming season. Hayenga from Worthington, Minnesota, Minnesota West Community College. Izzy Klumper coming in as a high school graduate of Westbrook Walnut Grove High School out of Westbrook, Minnesota. And Brindley McCrae coming from Sandy, Utah, and Utah State Eastern. Couple transfers in and a high school recruit landing, and more on that at GoAugie.com. Fresh off winning an NSIC championship, Augustana softball has been selected as the number 4 seed in the Central region and will face off with number 5 seed Oklahoma Baptist to open up the tournament. Regionals are set to be played May 9th through the 11th. 4 teams will participate at each of the 16 regional sites in a double elimination tournament, with winners advancing to the Super Regionals, which are slated for the following week, May 14th through the 15th. In the Central 1 region, the Vikings will play its games in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and will be joined by Oklahoma Baptist, number 1 seed Pittsburgh State, and number 8 seed Southern Arkansas. So a big opportunity for one of the premier softball programs, not only in Sioux Falls and South Dakota, but the region. Augustana been pretty darn great this year. They clinched an auto bid after winning the NSIC championship last Saturday as it took down Duluth 9-0. Let's round out your Reliabank headlines of the day by talking more about those Timberwolves, with Defensive Player of the Year frontrunner Rudy Gobert unavailable last night, and the defending champion Denver Nuggets needing a win to even the Western Conference semi-series. The Timberwolves put on a masterful defensive performance in a blowout victory in Game 2, 106-80. We had some really, really good defensive efforts this year, but that has to be right up there with the best of them. According to Coach Chris Finch, off the ball, on the ball, the physicality, the execution, just really locked in on defense. If holding Denver to just 35% shooting as a team with forceful defensive rotations and forcing 19 turnovers with suffocating perimeter presence was Minnesota's substance Monday. Anthony Edwards, 27 points and 7 assists coming in highlight reel fashion was the team's style. Good mix of style and substance indeed. Minnesota getting the defense ramped up, and you watch them on film, and it looks like a marquee showdown in college basketball. Top-tier defense, in your face, smothering defense. They've not only frustrated the Denver Nuggets, but as you heard Wendy say, they didn't just bend the Nuggets and force them to kind of adjust in Game 1, Game 2. They may have broken Denver. And Jamal Murray's impending suspension may indeed be the straw that breaks the camel's back, but certainly things are amiss right now in Denver. Do I think the Nuggets win a game in the series? I do. Do I think it's game 3? I'm not so sure. It depends on Murray's status, but man, oh man, things feel like they have taken a cataclysmic shift in that series as they have. And the Minnesota Timberwolves now very seriously considered one of the top teams in all of the NBA. Those are your ReliaBank headlines of the day for hour number 1. As always, for a better local banking option, you can check them out online, ReliaBank.com, or in person here in the 605. When we come back, we'll check in on all things University of Sioux Falls athletics. Newly minted athletic director Jon Hart swings by the show next on Overtime.
You want more of Overtime? It's all on the podcast. Free with the app or online at ESPN Sioux Falls. Overtime with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO.
Right back with you on this Tuesday, May 7th edition of Overtime. Appreciate you tuning us in as always right here on your Sioux Falls sports leader, ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. Certainly a lot going on in the sports world, from the NBA, NHL postseason, Kentucky Derby in the rear view. We got the NFL draft to still break down. But locally, there's a couple new people in new spots, and one of them is USF Athletic Director Jon Hart. Recently took over the athletic director position here at the University of Sioux Falls. He joins us now on the ESPN hotline. Jon, it's great to have you. How you been?
I've been great, man. Thanks for having me.
I know it's a challenging time, and there's a lot of things to get going and look forward to. But let's talk about the state overall there with USF. What's new, and baseball, softball winding down. It seems like a pretty nice time of the year with decent weather, depending upon the day, right?
Yeah, it is. It's hard to believe, that we're winding down another school year, and with that, kind of comes down the end of our seasons, and softball and baseball kind of ended within the last week or so. And, I think looking at both of those specifically, I think that each coach probably would have taken the outcomes that they had when it comes to, just the wins alone. I think what we end up with 22, I think baseball wins, and 20 softball wins. And I think that's an improvement on the baseball side by about 7 or 8 wins. And I know we had a really tough stretch there where we lost, I think, 6, 7 in a row. And that kind of took us out of contention from a playoff perspective, and then softball made playoffs. And I think that, if you would ask them, where they'd fall, I think that, they probably would have been slightly ahead of where they thought heading into, the season. So I think there's some wins there, especially considering the fact, on the softball side, Coach Bly hasn't been here too long. She hasn't even been here a full year yet. So, it's never easy kind of inheriting a new group, and then bringing in some of your own recruits and those kind of things. So there's challenges with that. And then, after a losing season with baseball last year, I think there's some positives there that we can definitely look forward to for the upcoming year. And then, other sports that we're kind of getting close to winding down with is track and field. That's definitely been a highlight for us, especially on the women's side. I think, we'll have rankings come out again today where our women will probably be in the top 20, if not just maybe outside of that. I think we were maybe 23 last time the rankings came out, but just a lot of great individual performances and team performances here to kind of finish out the year. It's hard to believe, like I said, we're only 2 weeks away from graduation.
It is very hard to believe. And again, for all the latest and greatest on USF Cougar athletics, USFCougars.com. Talking with athletic director Jon Hart here on the Tuesday edition of Overtime. As far as what's ahead, I know anytime you take over a new job, you want to get things in a row. You want to check those boxes. What are you doing lately to occupy your days? And obviously, it's a time of change for the athletic department. What's ahead for you guys immediately, and then down the line this spring and summer?
Yeah, I think one of the big emphasis that I've had since I've been here since January is just really getting to know our internal and external stakeholders. Internal meaning like our staff. Kind of getting the state of what our staff looks forward to, what's going well, what the challenges are for each of those. So spending time with those guys individually and collectively, I think has been really important for me. And then external wise too, is just kind of getting a beat on, a lot of our supporters, you know what I mean? Whether that's board members or corporate sponsors or individual boosters. That's been a huge area of emphasis for me as I gotten settled in here. It's just getting to know our people. And that's taken some time, and rightfully so. We got a lot of great people here, both internally and externally, and it's been great getting to know all those folks. But now it's, kind of really trying to utilize those relationships to make really good decisions for USF athletics moving forward. And that's going to be a huge emphasis this summer, is just really trying to, I think, enhance resources here on our campus specific to athletics. And I think that's going to come with really trying to enhance our corporate sponsor relationships, whether that's make our current ones better and getting new ones on board, and also really revitalizing and revamping our booster club, with kind of individual donors and alumni and those kind of things. So that's going to take up a lot of my time this summer, is just kind of building up those relationships and putting them in a good place and positioning ourselves for the future. And then, we have a few things here and there, whether that's some fundraisers. I've got a couple golf tournaments that are coming up. That'll be great. And, some conferences for me that'll kind of keep a pulse on things from a national scale. So it won't be a quiet summer by any means, Bert. There'll be a lot of things that we want to get done and stuff that I really look forward to.
And certainly a lot of exciting times ahead for USF Cougar Athletics. We're talking with Athletic Director Jon Hart here on the Tuesday edition of Overtime, ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. John, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that changing landscape, because 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, if you were to tell somebody what's going on today, I don't know if they'd believe you, but it's a little bit different. There's challenges every year that come up. But talk to us a little bit about the challenges in the landscape and how you're navigating those with your staff.
Yeah, I think the big thing is just really educating our staff and really educating our internal and external folks on where a lot of those things sit, so we know how to navigate them going forward. I think, the bigger topics from a national perspective are obviously NIL, transfer portal, conference realignment. Two of those three are pretty pressing for us, I feel like, and NIL is just going to be something that we have to deal with. And I don't think that I look at that from a negative light whatsoever, even though there's heightened challenges when you get into kind of the Power Fives and the bigger NCAA schools. But it's just something that has to be true. And it's something that we have to, one, educate our coaches on a little bit more and our student athletes on a little bit more, and make those opportunities available for our student athletes when appropriate. And then, from a transfer portal perspective, that's probably a bigger challenge for us, probably at this level right now, more so than the NIL piece, is just getting our student athletes to really understand, like, hey, USF is going to be a place that challenges you, right? I mean, there's going to be challenges that you face in and out of the classroom, and we're here to help you through those challenges. But it's how you navigate those challenges. It's going to kind of really tell the tale on how your life's going to go, because as you know, Bert, and as we've all experienced, is like once you get out of school, once you get out of colleges, those challenges continue to hit you. You know what I mean? In the real world. And, I think that right now, we just kind of have an unfortunate culture and an unfortunate society a little bit, in the fact that, if any of those challenges occur, we just kind of throw our hands up and say, hey, I'm going somewhere else. I just feel like the transfer portal, the transfer process is so glorified anymore that I think that our student athletes just have a lot of misconceptions on how that should look and how that should go. So it's our job just to make sure that, one, that they're educated about the transfer portal process, that we just tell them, like, hey, the grass isn't always greener. If you look at the data doesn't look too favorable for kids that enter the transfer portal, making them realize that, and just also making them realize that, hey, USF's going to be a place that we challenge you, and also we help you through those challenges and to really stick it out. And so we want to make sure that our student athletes are having a quality experience here while they get here, so the transfer portal doesn't hit us as hard. And I think we're doing that very, very well so far. If you look across the board with our sports, I think our retention is going to be really favorable heading into the fall. So I do feel like our coaches are doing the right things, and our faculty and staff are doing the right things to really make sure our student athletes are having a great experience, because there's not a lot of people literally right within our conference that could say the same, So those are two big ones. Another one that's kind of emerged too, that I want to make sure that we're educated and positioned on, that some people probably overlook, that I know it's a huge topic from an NCAA perspective, is sports gambling. that has gotten to be so glorified and so normalized that we got to worry about that, with our student athletes. So, and I mean, I think it's legal in 38 states. So, it's just going to be something that we got to keep a pulse on to make sure that, our student athletes, aren't getting involved in those kind of things or really discourage it when able. Even though it is legalized, you get really worried about some of those things when it starts affecting kind of, just your peer relationships with student athletes. And, so those are just some things that we want to keep a pulse on and make sure that we're super educated about and have some programming with going forward.
And certainly a lot of challenges, but very well said. It's about creating value. And I know that USF and Augustana, a pair of outstanding D2 institutions and athletic departments, definitely create value for their students and their student athletes right here in Sioux Falls and beyond. Athletic Director Jon Hart, our guest. John, lastly, before we let you go, I just wanted to get your take on football spring game. That was exciting to see. And, of course, a lot of fans out to support the program. We're about 3 months away from football season. I'm a football junkie, so I always keep it on my watch here. Hey, how long? How many days? Can't wait for that. Talk to us a little bit about the football program, what to look forward to in year number 2 under Coach Glogowski.
Yeah, it's so hard to get a lot out of those spring games from an optics or external perspective. You kind of walk away from some of those not knowing where things sit. But I think that Coach Glow and I were both really excited with how that went. This was kind of the first year that we're able to play an external or an outside team. So it was really cool to have Moorhead up here and really bang on somebody else other than ourselves. But I think we got a lot out of it, and then we didn't have any injuries. So, I think we've had a really good spring overall. But the thing that I really am excited about is just the incoming group that Glow has and also his returners. I mean, we're going to be starting probably the fall with about 120 guys.
Wow.
So there's a lot, and it's going to be competitive. And he's brought in a lot of great recruits and transfers. And from an optics perspective, they all pass the eyeball test, and so I just can't wait to kind of see them get going this fall, and it's going to be a fun fall. And then obviously we have a really fun game to start with where we go to St. Thomas and play at SCF school, and that'll be a lot of fun too for our guys and a great experience for our group. So I'm really optimistic about the year. Got a lot of good kids coming in, and I think Coach Glow and his staff are super excited. But major props to them. They've done a phenomenal job from a recruiting perspective and just keeping things going from a momentum side of things.
Very exciting stuff ahead for USF Cougar Athletics. USF Cougar football season opener Thursday, August 29th out in St. Paul against St. Thomas. Home opener will be UMary on Saturday, September the 14th for those keeping score at home. Follow along with all things USF Athletics, usfcougars.com. That's Athletic Director Jon Hart. John, always appreciate the time. We'll do it again here soon. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate you, Bert. Thanks a lot.
All right, that's USF Athletic Director Jon Hart here on the Tuesday edition of Overtime. Certainly a lot of challenges in the landscape, and I don't envy the position of navigating those waters, but the cool thing is that it's always changing. And with the challenges that pop up, whether it's sports gambling, whether it's NIL, whether it's the transfer portal, we know the wheel keeps turning in college athletics. It feels a little out of control right now from the biggest stages with the NIL, the transfers, everything going on there, including the multiple transfers, the COVID year, whatever debate you want to have. It's certainly on the table right now for college athletics, and it trickles down to the FCS, to D2, to D3, to NAIA, and it's not unique to the Alabamas and the Michigans of the world. It's all the way down at D2, D3, NAIA, and beyond. It's a conversation worth having, and great comments there from USF Athletic Director Jon Hart about navigating those challenges in the current college athletics landscape, not just football and basketball, but across the board. The athletes are a little bit more empowered, and they need to be educated about the risks of the transfer portal, sports gambling, everything that was mentioned there. Great conversation with USF Athletic Director Jon Hart. We take the break. When we come back, we'll dive right back in to the NBA talk. Minnesota Timberwolves are for real. We knew that. We know that. What are their odds looking like in Game 3? They're favored at home. They should be, but I think they should be favored by more. We'll dive into that and the latest NBA Finals odds and more, and the latest news from the NBA, including we're keeping waiting. We're refreshing the page, seeing if Jamal Murray will be suspended for Game 3, maybe Game 4 as well. We'll wait and see on that news. Might not break today, but if it does, on the air, we'll get it to you as soon as possible. Back with more of Overtime on a Tuesday after this.
Stream us on streaming now. Overtime with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO. Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you. It is the Tuesday edition of Overtime. Stay tuned later on this hour. The latest from the NFL and an opportunity to score some free cupcakes just in time for Mother's Day. 6-pack of cupcakes up for grabs from Oh My Cupcakes. Couple great locations here in the 605. I'm going to personally help you not drop the ball for Mother's Day. Another big PSA. Mother's Day coming up on Sunday for your mom. Get the cupcakes, maybe for your significant other and the mother to your kiddos. Don't drop the ball for Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. I will help you not drop the ball with Overtime, giving away 3 certificates coming up at the end of hour number 1. Now back to the NBA. We didn't really give the Knicks their due. They won their game 1, but it was definitely dwarfed by the performance in game 2 by the Timberwolves last night. Final score in that one, 106-80 in favor of Minnesota. 27 points for Cat and for Anthony Edwards in that win. But the Knicks come from behind and then late hang on to a win over Indiana, 121-117. And Jalen Brunson has been a top 3 player in the postseason. Of course, you got to put Anthony Edwards in that list. You can maybe put Jokic or somebody else into that spot. But Jalen Brunson been one of the best players in the NBA over the last month plus, and that's not hyperbole to say. Brunson's historic scoring run is marching onward as a new opponent feels his latest wrath. Brunson has had yet another brilliant fourth quarter last night, relentless basket attacks and a masterful shot creation selection, leading to 21 of his 43 points as the Knicks clawed out a 4-point home win over Indiana. Reminiscent of his late game flourishes in the previous round against the Sixers, Brunson now has 40 points in 4 straight playoff games. Added to his 6 assists, he became the first player in NBA history to have a run of 4 consecutive 40-point, 5-assist playoff games. Brunson said the little things can go a long way, so yeah, the 40 points are cool and all, but it's the little things that help us win games like that. So I'm just happy I have the group of guys that I do. I just know that we're going out to fight every single day, and that's all I'm thinking about. And I said this in the open of the show. There were a lot of big baskets in the fourth quarter for the New York Knicks and for Jalen Brunson, but my opinion, the biggest basket of the night was when he had an ISO opportunity at the top of the key and he shoved it off to DiVincenzo, who drained a 3 to give him the big lead, or to tie the game rather late in the contest. Brunson and DiVincenzo playing together for quite some time, and now everything's clicking for the New York Knicks. I think they cruise in that series. I have some respect for Indiana. Do I think they're deep enough? Do I think they're physical enough? I'm not so sure. I think the Knicks get that one done in 5 games, maybe 6 if Indiana manages to steal one. Valiant effort in game 1, but the Knicks find a way to get it done. Other news from the NBA, Nuggets guard Jamal Murray should have been called for a technical foul and might end up getting suspended, but did not get ejected for throwing a heating pad on the floor during Denver's loss to Minnesota last night, crew chief Mark Davis said after last night's game. With Murray on the bench and Karl Anthony Towns receiving a pass from Kyle Anderson to put Minnesota up 19 with 4:41 to go in the second quarter, the Nuggets point guard tossed the pad on the floor while live game action was in progress. Nuggets guard Kentavious Caldwell-Pope picked up the pad, tossed it to the sidelines, and play continued without any whistle from the referees. I was the lead official, and I didn't notice it on the floor or where it came from until Towns scored. We weren't aware it had come from the bench. If we would have been aware it came from the bench, we would have reviewed it under the hostile act trigger. The penalty would have been a technical foul. The Timberwolves now lead the Western Conference semis over Denver 2-0, and Minnesota coach Chris Finch called Murray's act dangerous and inexcusable. Great words to describe the situation, and said the Wolves attempted to reason with the officiating crew to adjudicate the incident. We tried to impress upon the refs they probably aren't there many fans in the building that have a heat pack, so it probably had to come from the bench, which they found logical. Finch said, I'm sure it was a mistake and an oversight, nothing intentional by the officiating at all, but certainly can't allow that to happen. I don't care if it was a Nuggets player throwing it and it injured a Nuggets player, or a Timberwolves player throwing it and injured a Timberwolves player. It is a horrifically bad look, and the NBA needs to respond accordingly, and the referees need to be on their A game. Certainly they couldn't see that coming. I don't remember the last time that a player threw something like that on the floor during the game. It's absurdly dangerous, it's absurdly dumb, and it will surely end in a fine, maybe suspension for Jamal Murray, and it absolutely should, as the Nuggets might be broken ahead of Game 3 in Minnesota later this week. Now on to some off-season news in Nuggets. If Jimmy Butler wants to see more pay, Pat Riley will want to see more play from the Heat leader, and in simple terms, that is the entry point for this offseason for the Miami Heat. Butler is almost certainly going to ask the Heat for a 2-year extension over the summer, and it could guarantee him as much as $113 million for the next 2 seasons. And Riley said on Monday in his annual end-of-season remarks that he isn't sure what the team will do when that moment arrives. We haven't discussed that internally yet, Riley said. We have to look at making that kind of commitment, and when we do it. We don't have to do it till 2025, actually, but we'll see. We haven't made a decision on it, and we haven't really in earnest discussed it as of yet. Certainly that's a team in flux. I don't think the Heat culture is dead. As long as they got Spoelstra, the culture remains, just like Pop down in San Antonio. One of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NBA year in and year out, but certainly feels like it might be a little bit transition time moving forward for the Miami Heat. Now for your latest odds check-in from DraftKings Sportsbook. For tonight's games, Cleveland and Boston, Game 1. Dallas and OKC, Game 1 as well from OKC. Pretty darn lopsided, and the Boston Celtics did lose 1 game to the Heat in their last series as double-digit favorites. And they're starting out Game 1 as a double-digit favorite at home to Cleveland. Cleveland is getting 12 points. Feels like a lot, but 12 points on the road against Boston. That's the early game. And Dallas and OKC, pretty close, but OKC favored by 3.5 on their home floor. As for tomorrow's game, Indiana and New York, Game 2. They're on the Knicks, a 5-point favorite for New York, and Game 3 from Minnesota Friday night, Denver and Minnesota. I feel like the Timberwolves deserve just a little bit more respect. I certainly appreciate the wariness of Vegas and thinking that Denver's going to come galvanized and ready to battle and steal 1 back, maybe steal 2 back on the road. That could happen. But Minnesota was roughly a 4.5-point to 5.5-point dog in Game 1 and Game 2, and they're now a 4.5-point favorite in Game 3. Logic would tell me to bet the Timberwolves in that contest. I'm going to stay away because I feel like Denver has something left in the tank with or without Jamal Murray for Game 3, Game 4. Game 3 is paramount, though. You go down 3-0, going to be really hard to win that Game 4, especially with Minnesota playing to close out the series on their home floor. But Game 3 is a must-win for Denver. That's obvious. I'm not saying that as a hot take here. But Denver plus 4.5, I like their odds there. Minnesota, though, has absolutely boat raced them, out physicaled them, and the defense has been extraordinary for Minnesota. I feel like that spread is a little too low, but I'm staying away because Denver has to have something in the tank, or at least so you would think. Latest series odds, DraftKings Sportsbook as well. Knicks and Pacers. Knicks are minus 340 favorites there. Timberwolves are now a heavy favorite to win the series against Denver, minus 525. Denver now plus 400. If you have any faith in the Nuggets, the time is now to pull the trigger there. Boston and Cleveland. Celtics are a runaway favorite, minus 1,800. Cleveland paying out plus 1,000 as the underdog. And an absurdly close series in the eyes of Vegas ahead of Game 1 between the Thunder and the Mavs. OKC minus 120, Dallas plus 100. And lastly, in your odds roundup for the NBA, the NBA Finals odds, Boston still your favorite plus 105. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves, the second best odds to win it all this year as of today. Minnesota, the odds at DraftKings Sportsbook plus 320. And those are the top 2 by a mile. Boston plus 105, Minnesota plus 320, Thunder plus 850, Knicks plus 950. The Nuggets have the 6th best odds at plus 1,200. They were second yesterday before a disastrous Game 2. We're back in a moment to wrap up hour number 1. Latest from the NFL and an opportunity to score some sweets from Oh My Cupcakes coming up next on Overtime.
Don't miss a moment of local college and pro sports action. Stay connected and download the app for Overtime on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO.
Bert Rameen back here with you, wrapping up hour number 1 on a Tuesday. Still to come next hour, headlines of the day. I'll repick the NBA playoffs. I was wrong on a couple of things, and I might end up being wrong with my initial pick. This was a couple weeks ago of Denver over Minnesota in this round, and I'm happy to be wrong about that. I was off on the Sixers and a couple other areas, but I've been right in areas as well. We'll revisit those, repick the NBA playoffs, and also talk some future NFL news with Augie alum LA Rams offensive lineman Blake Larson of Augustana and Brandon Valley High School fame will join us around 12:30 on today's program. Also coming up soon, an opportunity to score some goodies just in time for Mother's Day. If you're looking for a way to say thank you to a special someone, Oh My Cupcakes always has what you need. Cupcakes, cake for one, sugar cookies, pupcakes, cakes, frosting shots, and more. Also for Mother's Day, it's not just a 6-pack of cupcakes. You can go there and get your cupcakes, but it's a one-stop shop. You can get hooked up with Mother's Day cards, candles, blankets, notebooks, journals, other goodies, all for mom and that special person in your life. Oh My Cupcakes. Stay tuned for a giveaway here shortly. Latest from the NFL, the Carolina Panthers backfield is starting to get crowded with a lot of interesting names. The team agreed to a contract with former first-round running back Rashad Penny yesterday, reuniting him with head coach Dave Canales after their days spent together out in Seattle. Terms of the deal's not disclosed. Penny now joins a running backfield that has Jonathan Brooks, rookie out of Texas, Chuba Hubbard, few years in the league, Miles Sanders, veteran, but a disappointing year after a big payday last year for Sanders in Carolina, and Raheem Blackshear in a crowded backfield. Penny, very familiar with Canales' system, which features the run and versatility, had his best season with the Seahawks back in 2021 when Canales was the passing game coordinator. Could be in line to make the team. Penny has suffered a tremendous amount of adversity in his NFL career, mostly centered around injury. Looking to get it going, maybe make a roster challenge for some carries in that Carolina Panthers offense, looking for a lead back. Other news, Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow is back, marked with a major offseason milestone on Monday. As the team started their second phase of voluntary workouts, Burrow was in uniform and throwing passes in a video shared by the team. The Bengals were closed to the media on Monday, but quarterbacks coach Brad Cragthorpe told the team's website that he was pleased with how his star quarterback looked in his first practice back since suffering a season-ending wrist injury back in November. He looked like the Joe Burrow we're used to seeing. I didn't see any difference. I thought the ball came out of his hand well, confidently. I'm happy with where he's at. On November 27th, Dr. Thomas Graham repaired the scalphinate ligament in Burrow's right wrist. A source confirmed to ESPN, Joe Burrow, one of my favorites and a surefire, in my opinion, top 3 NFL quarterback right now. Burrow back and hopefully better than ever for the Bengals, looking to creep their way back into the postseason in 2024. The Las Vegas Raiders have continued to add to their roster in this wave of free agency, and yesterday signed former New Orleans Saints offensive lineman Andrus Peat to a free agent contract. Sources with knowledge of the situation confirmed the news to ESPN. Deal is pending completion of a physical. The 6'7", 316-pounder, 3-time Pro Bowler at left guard, who also played left tackle during his 9-year career, brings experience and depth to an offensive line in need of both. The Raiders have a lot of good players on their roster. The issue is we don't really know what you're going to get at quarterback. It's a Forrest Gump box of chocolates out there in Vegas at the QB position. They got studs across the board in other spots. Max Crosby, Robert Spillane, Devontae Adams, all sorts of rookies in the mix. But certainly we'll wait and see what Minshew Mania brings down there to Vegas, and maybe, just maybe, Aiden O'Connell beats out Minshew for that starting job. We will wait and see. That's hour number 1 in the latest from the NFL, and now it's first come, first serve time for some free cupcakes. A half dozen cupcakes to Oh My Cupcakes. By the way, if you head out there, it's a one-stop shop at Oh My Cupcakes. They got you covered with everything you need for Mother's Day. Recipe cards, candles, blankets, notebooks, journals, coloring books, and so many great gifts to make your Mother's Day so special. Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. If you would like a free 6-pack of of Mother's Day half-dozen cupcakes. Dial me up right now, 605-362-3776. Again, free 6-pack of cupcakes. I will not let you down for Mother's Day. If you want in, and if you don't want to drop the ball, 605-362-3776. 605-362-3776. These cupcakes are going like hotcakes. I already got my lines filled up. If you miss out today, just a few remaining the rest of the week. Don't miss out. Dial us up, 605-362-3776. Hour number 2 next on Overtime.